Hello, good evening. One of the most powerful men in the fundraising world has stepped down from his job in a sector already reeling from allegations of inappropriate sexual behaviour. Justin Forsyth, Deputy Director of UNICEF, resigned from his role tonight just days after the BBC reported that while he was Chief Executive at Save the Children, he sent unsolicited texts to female members of staff. He specified in a statement that he was leaving UNICEF because of the danger of damaging both UNICEF and Save the Children and our wider cause, insisting he'd already offered unreserved apologies to the women involved at the time. UNICEF is just the latest charity to have found itself caught up in the scandal. This evening, the Haitian government announced it would temporarily revoke Oxfam's right to operate in the country after the charity confirmed several members of staff had admitted to sexual misconduct there. How damaging is all this becoming to the sector? Here's Chris Cook.
Over the past few weeks, we've had revelations about Oxfam, then the management of Save the Children. Brendan Cox, widower of Joe Cox, has already conceded that his behaviour towards women at that charity was inappropriate. And now one of his former colleagues has resigned from his current role at UNICEF. Justin Forsyth, who ran Save the Children, said in a statement today that
I want to make clear I am not resigning from UNICEF because of the mistakes I made at Save the Children. They were dealt with through a proper process many years ago. I apologise unreservedly at the time and face to face. I apologise again. I am resigning because of the danger of damaging both UNICEF and Save the Children and our wider cause. Two organisations I truly love and cherish. I can't let this happen.
But Mr. Forsyth's resignation follows a major revelation by Radio 4's PM. The programme learned that there were 3 separate complaints of him sending inappropriate text messages and making comments about female employees' appearance at Save the Children. Mr. Forsyth's account of his behaviour at the charity had always stated there had been no formal complaints, and he had apologised to those concerned. Now, Mr. Forsyth has been a central figure in British aid over the past decade or so. You might remember this disastrous moment as Gordon Brown was recorded discussing a member of the public with an aide.
I'm not sure they'll go with that one.
They will go with it.
What did she say?
Oh, everything. She's just a sort of bigoted woman. She'll never pick me.
Well, that aide was Mr. Forsyth, who had then been working on development for 6 years in Downing Street. As the chief executive of Save the Children, he became a major figure in that field. Since leaving Save the Children in 2016, he became Deputy Executive Director of UNICEF and a UN Assistant Secretary General. Those are the jobs he's now left. The ripples from the global movement against harassment continue to spread.
Well, that was Chris Cook, and earlier I spoke to Brie O'Keefe, who worked at Save the Children between 2011 and 2013. She told me about her experience of the working environment under Justin Forsyth.
Justin came in with a mandate to lead and shake things up and make us more aggressive, and that's what he did. But a side effect of that was also that certain toxic leadership behaviors were tolerated. That included, temper tantrums, yelling, disrespectful behavior, being on call at all hours, and really no way for any upward accountability or feedback to be brought through. And worse than kind of any threat to your job, should you question things, would be that you would be sidelined from some of the best projects. So in this atmosphere, really toxic culture grew.
I guess he is taking responsibility for his actions now, isn't he? He's resigned from UNICEF, saying he doesn't want any more damage to the sector or the industry, even though he says he made his apologies at Save the Children, dealt with through a proper process many years ago.
I do think that Justin has done a better job of apologizing unreservedly for the incidences that he created, but he hasn't taken responsibility for the repercussions to the people who were involved, which I don't think have come to light, mostly because those victims want to remain anonymous. But he hasn't taken any responsibility for the culture he fostered at Save the Children.
What was the impact, do you think, on the charity and on the sector itself, more widely, more long term?
I love Save the Children. I loved working there, and I've been haunted for a long time by this experience. And one of the things that kept many of us from speaking out earlier was a desire to protect the organization that we loved. There was no way for us to speak publicly about the behavior of Justin, Brendan, and others who still have not been named without damaging an organization we love. We're in an atmosphere, a political atmosphere, where many people want to and are capitalizing upon these crises in order to push an anti-immigrant, anti-global agenda. And that is not what I want to see happen. But I do want to see reform in our sector. I want to see immoral behaviors by powerful people being addressed. And this will improve the charity's work over the long term.
You said others that have not been named. You can't name them here. But how many others are you thinking of that were behaving in that way, similar to that, at the time you worked there?
There are probably a handful within Save the Children, and then there are other charities, I believe, who need to take a good long look at themselves and how their senior staff, senior people, have been treating younger people.
At the very top of the organisation.
At the very top of the organizations, alongside, like with the Oxfam scandal in Haiti, I think there, are a lot of cases of people at the ground level abusing the poorest and most vulnerable who are in desperate need of services. These are kind of apples and oranges, but they're both still fruit, in that you have people serving the most vulnerable who need food, water, shelter, and they're being exploited. And then you also have, ambitious young career people working in London who are idealistic, but they also end up exploited. And all of that is about power and the patriarchy.
Bree, when people put to you, as I'm sure they do, that Justin Forsyth massively increased donations that were coming in, that he was a force for enormous good at the time he worked in the charity, what's your response to that?
What's challenging about all of these issues is that people can be both good and bad at once. And I feel very similarly about Brendan. I loved working with him for a long time. He was actually very professional and courteous in the office, but it was an open secret that he was up to no good outside of the office, and somehow we were all groomed into keeping this secret for him as the price we had to pay to do very good work around the world. And I feel complicit in that, and that's one of the reasons why I'm speaking out now.
This may be used as a stick by those who oppose the foreign aid budget to politically speak out now, to say, we told you so.
And I would say that for those critics, their own industries and causes close to their own hearts are not immune to these type of scandals. This is not a development sector problem. This is not an international aid problem. This is a society problem, and that they should be careful as they move forward how viciously they attack these things, because we don't know what industry the Me Too movement is going to hit next. And a whole generation of younger female staff are growing up and feeling bolder and bolder, and I would count myself in those ranks, and we're not going to keep quiet for very much longer. I want to say that the work Save the Children does and Oxfam does is vital. It's often unpopular, but it's desperately needed. And while people may be taking advantage of this crisis, I really hope that what comes out of this process is sunlight that disinfects it and makes us better going forward.
Bree O'Keefe, thank you very much. Well, we did try to reach Justin Forsyth for comment this evening. His lawyers responded that he neither created nor presided over a toxic culture or a culture of bullying whilst at Save the Children. Justin Forsyth also said in his statement tonight that he did not resign from UNICEF because of the mistakes he made at Save the Children, that they were dealt with through a proper process many years ago, and he apologised unreservedly at the time. Save the Children itself said it had commissioned a root and branch review of the organisational culture at the charity, addressing any behavioural challenges among senior leadership.